So last week, I don't remember what we were talking about exactly, but I do know what we were talking about that we received questions on was the messy in the middle. And that is 90% of the real estate transaction.
That's right.
So I thought we should talk about the mess today.
Yes.
Let's. Hi, I'm Carla.
And I'm Crystal.
And we're real estate agents in Mooresville, North Carolina.
Welcome to our show.
So if you are interested in real estate, behind the scenes of real estate, maybe if you're looking to buy or sell a home or have ever owned a home, I think that you'll find something interesting in this show for you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Where should we begin?
Well, I think we'll talk what is the messy in the middle part. It is the part between when you sign the contract to whenever you go
To closing. Yep.
And I would venture to say that that is a much more dangerous time period for things to go crazy than even getting your house under contract.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. And there are several reasons that come to mind of when we've seen the most mess. I mean, to be fair, I'm in the middle of at least 5 messes right now.
This is a good time for us to talk about it because we are smack in the middle of the mess.
Yeah. And while I'm not going to talk about my current mess, that'll probably come up in future episodes, I will say that the ones that I have going on right now have to do with emotions, inspections, and appraisals, and now possibly even financing. And those are some of the biggest ones.
Yes.
What do you say?
Yes.
So let's start with financing.
Yes, start with financing.
You'd think that'd be pretty simple. Like,
Yes.
I am pre-qualified to purchase this house.
Yeah. I think we do a really good job of trying to head off any kind of financing issues by making sure that our clients are pre-approved, that we see the proof of funds, that we see that they have the money that they need other than their down payment.
Right.
But still things come up, like if somebody, you want to talk about if they want to switch, this came up
Just today.
if somebody wants to switch the loan type. They have made an offer for cash because they have cash, but they changed their mind. Can they do that?
And the answer is absolutely. And we see it happen all the time because in this market, cash is king. Everybody that's a seller wants to see a cash offer, even though what they should be told is that a cash offer isn't necessarily any better than any other offer. Because one is, it can be changed to a loan at any time, and there's nothing that the seller can do about it so long as it doesn't impact the terms of the contract.
That's right. But even that's a messy part, because when you tell the other agent, oh, my client's changed their mind, they've decided to do a loan, they might not be happy.
Well, they might not be happy, but they can't
Then
do
you get
anything
into
about
the
it.
emotions.
Yeah, and the seller's probably not going to be happy because he thought that a cash offer means this is what the seller's thinking, not what it means. The seller is thinking, A, this person has so much cash, we don't even have to worry about them losing their job, or if the house appraises, because they're probably not going to even do an appraisal. And surely if they have this much cash and they want this house, they can have any house, so they must really want our house, so they're less likely to back out. And none of those things
is true.
Yeah, none of those things are true. And I have seen cash offers walk away for as much as $100,000 in due diligence.
Yeah, I think you have said that you felt like they were somewhat more likely.
I do, because I think the person that is getting a loan typically has tighter financing constrictions. They are more concerned with losing their money. They've also put more forth in terms of spending money. They've paid for a loan application. They've paid for an appraisal. They've started more processes into it. And so I think that they were more thought provocative about that. But nothing against a cash offer. I mean, it is nice to have. I just don't think one is better than the other.
It's not risk free. It's definitely not risk free, and that's sometimes people get that impression.
And I didn't think about this till you pointed it out to me, but we say cash offer, but that's not actually what that means.
Right. Just a couple weeks ago, I had a closing, and on the documents from the attorney, it says cash to close. So my client calls and says, okay, so I'll have my cash ready. I'm like, no, you can't bring cash. And she said, I have to bring cash. Like, no, you can't. She said, well, why does everything say cash to close? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know, but it's not cash. You cannot take thousands and thousands of dollars to the attorney's office. You have to go and send a wire.
And there was that one thing that an agent was talking about where the client got so upset because he had accepted a cash offer. I believe he accepted a less than other offers because it was cash.
Right.
And he went to the bank. He went to the closing, and he wanted them to give him his proceeds
in cash, and was upset with the attorney, and even made a complaint about his agent. Like, she said, this is a little bit better offer because it's cash. I want my cash. The attorney is not giving you cash. They can wire the money. They can write you a check. It's not cash. Why we need to say
it's cash-like.
It's
the equivalent. They have cash in the bank.
It's somewhere. A no loan. I don't know.
It's not financing. It's not financed.
Yeah.
But I would like it sometimes if I could pay certain people in pennies.
Well, yeah. Well, and sometimes even cash is fine. Sometimes cash is financed.
Well, yeah, that's
people
true.
Borrow from themselves, so it's sort of through their
401s or different things like that. So I think the point is that you can't accept an offer solely based on that being the thing that makes it better, because that is that's changeable, fluid. That's right. Nothing you can do after the fact if you've accepted a cash offer. So just weigh all of the terms, not just the one term.
Right.
Yeah. So next messy is very messy. And we've talked about it before, so I don't know how much we have to go into it now, but home inspections.
Yes.
They are the mess.
Well, and I'll say this too. We encourage, not just the home inspections, but all the inspections. And we encourage our clients we always encourage them to do all the things, to do the home inspection, radon, septic,
lead possibly sometimes.
Yes, water testing if it's on a well. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, and I think that in North Carolina, homes are purchased in the condition where you made the offer. So if you have an inspection and you are the buyer and there is $50,000 worth of things that are wrong with that house, how many of those does the seller require to fix?
They're not required to fix anything.
And that is a hard pill for some buyers to especially if they're coming from another state where they do have some requirements. So I'll often get, but this is safety related.
Right. It's a safety issue, so they have to do it. Or it didn't pass inspection. That's also not a thing. There's no such thing as pass and fail in an inspection. The point of the due diligence period and getting all the inspections is to make sure that buyer wants to proceed with the transaction.
That they understand the home that they are purchasing. They know all the things.
Right. But that's not to say that the sellers will not make any repairs, because we are allowed to negotiate during that process, but they are not required to, and we just have to make that clear to the buyers. And I'll go on a tangent and say the most extreme things when I'm trying to explain it to my clients. I'm like, if this house is sitting on a sinkhole and it is sinking, you're not getting your due diligence money back.
They're like, but is it sitting on a sinkhole?
I don't know. It could be. I don't know.
And I think it's not, again, like you said, it's not that the seller won't fix it. It's just another negotiation. It's part 2 negotiation, which I think is actually harder than part 1.
Yes. They just stack right on top of each other.
Because part 1, everybody was excited.
That's
like the sellers were excited to offer, the buyers were excited because they found a perfect house. But part 2, now it's the reality part, and they're like, well, this house is going to cost me not only what I've agreed to pay for it, but also in what I'm going to have to do futuristically to it. And the seller's thinking of it the same way, like, well, I've got this buyer, great, but they want me to do all of this stuff. And if I wanted to fix all this stuff, I would have just stayed in my house.
Right, they say that exactly. They say that.
Yeah, if I wanted to fix it, I'd just stay here. I'm like, okay. And a lot of times it is things that nobody knew about. Like the seller often doesn't know. On a recent home inspection, there was like a leak, a small leak in the tankless hot water heater up in the attic that was leaking onto like a walk board for like workers to be in the attic to get to it. So it wasn't in the ceiling or anything. It wasn't the one that anybody knew about, but it was still a leak. I mean, you can't fault anybody for it. The sellers didn't know about it, and the buyer clearly couldn't have known about it. And the negotiation is just fine over it because it was one of those things. I think it gets to be difficult when you have like, I'm making an offer on the house with a 30-year-old roof that I know is 30 years old.
Right, we knew that when we looked at the house.
We knew it when we made the offer.
Right.
We had an inspection. The inspector says
it needs a new roof.
And then I go,
oh my gosh,
you're gonna have to give me a new roof.
That's right.
Like, you knew it needed a new roof?
Yeah, it is true that if buyers are reasonable about what they request, most of the time, sellers will
be reasonable as well.
That's right.
I think you have to be reasonable when you're purchasing a house, while especially in this market, and it's easy to see that there's a lot of people trying and you're vying for the competition. You want to pretend like everything is great, but you really have to look for those things up front. And if you can see something up front when you're walking through the house, you should take that into consideration. And if it means that much to you that it would be repaired, put that as a term of your offer.
Right. But and there's a lot of this. When we were talking last week about just walking through the house, and then we get into this messy part. Even before we make the offer, we try to get ahead of some of the mess. Mm-hmm. We immediately, like when we look at the house, we're like, okay, that roof. We look at the roof. Why are we in the crawl space? We talk about that. Yeah. We're looking for insulation that's falling down and water and no plastic down. We're trying to get ahead of what may come.
I know I sound like a negative Nelly when I'm walking through a house with people, because I'm like, did you notice that scratch in the floor? Did you see how that light isn't on? Perhaps they just need a new light bulb, or perhaps they don't have working lights there, which also that's just a tip to self. If you are selling your house,
light bulbs,
make sure all the light bulbs work. It is my thing.
Well, yeah, and we do a good job of preparing our buyers and sellers for what the inspection period like. That helps, because when I was a newer agent, I learned that if they know what to expect, if they know that I've said this before in this, that home inspector is required to find all this stuff. There's tons of disclosures they're required to do. If the buyer's expecting that, then they're not going to go, oh my gosh, this is 75 pages worth of stuff. This is awful. That helps.
Yeah.
That they're prepared. And the seller, don't take it personal. The inspector is doing their job.
Right. So in a market like we have that's very competitive right now, appraisals are a huge I just gave it away. Appraisals are one of the next big messy in the middle, especially in a competitive market.
Right. And again, it's another thing that we made writing the offer sound easy. That's another thing that we're pretty confident we have a good idea what the appraisal is going to be like before we write the offer. We check the neighborhood, we check comps, we see what's sold, we see what's on the market, to be prepared.
And I try to tell people and remind my clients that what is on the appraiser or the appraisal report might not accurately reflect what a buyer's market looks like. So the appraisal is looking at historical data, what has closed, how much did it close for. They're comparing the different features of the home, which is really good to get a good guideline for historically what these homes are worth. But when we're talking about a competitive market, we're talking about what the market values certain things as well. And that is futuristically or currently, we're trying to show to somebody in certain market types, market neighborhoods, desirable features, those are super competitive and super desirable, but in terms of like a monetary amount, they may not be worth it on an appraisal report.
Right.
A pool is a great example.
Yes, and we went to we talk about describing what the appraisers are historians, and we are fortune tellers, because we not only are looking at what has happened, we also have to predict what is going to happen.
Yeah.
And we do that by looking at the current inventory. This house just went on the market. Are there 50 showings or are there 0? All those things we have to, and then we have to try to figure out what we think is going to happen and hope we're right.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of times, I won't say often, these things, very similar, what we've offered is very similar to what the appraisal value would be, but every once in a while, especially in a competitive market, it can be vastly different. And here's where the messy part starts, because somebody will say, well, the house didn't appraise. Surely they'll have to give me my money back.
Nope.
Well, the house really didn't appraise, so surely I get my due diligence back.
No, and they have to lower the price, right?
They have to definitely lower the price, right?
No,
they do not.
No.
It is, again, a negotiation, but the seller could just as easily say, no, I don't want, I think the market values my house at this price, and I don't care what the appraiser said. And that is an unfortunate, messy part. And the messiest part of that, they'll go, well, they'll have to tell everybody if I walk away.
No, they do not.
Because the reality is, the appraisal value is good for that specific day and that specific time. And if all the other homes sold overnight, well, then I would bet that home would be worth a lot more money.
Yes, and the truth is, there are plenty of people that would be willing to pay the difference.
I have plenty of people that have paid significantly above appraisal value because the home was worth it to them.
Yeah.
And that's where I usually tell that to people, especially when you're doing multiple offers, and say, at some point, we're beyond the data. You have to offer on this home what it is worth to you.
Right.
And that is very individual. It has nothing to do with what has sold. It just has more to do with what exactly is
How
valuable.
much are you willing to pay?
Yeah.
And I interrupted you. You were going to say something about pools. The pool example.
Yes, I was. oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Pools are a great example because
Yes.
pools are incredibly valuable right now to the market. Like, everybody wants their own pool right now. We cannot get enough homes with pools. They sell for probably $100,000 more. But I would venture to say that most appraisers are giving a pool value, even the nicest pools, between $25,000 and $50,000.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if you could get a blow-up pool right now installed in your backyard for that amount of money. They're expensive right now to put in a pool, really expensive.
Yes, and they're not going to value it based on what the person paid for it.
Yeah.
They're just valuing it as how much more would someone pay versus an apples to apples house that didn't have one. That's what they're supposed to be doing. But in reality, we know that it could be even more than it costs.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time, just in terms of, like, when you're trying to figure out to increase the value of your house and things like that. I go, well, there are value adds, like a kitchen always adds value to your house. Then there are things that might be valuable to you because they're like a lifestyle that you want. So an appraiser cannot put an amount on a lifestyle value.
Or talk about boat slips.
Well, that's just crazy prices now.
Yeah, I mean, how much
I could buy a whole boat.
Well, I think I've heard you say something like, you cannot put a dollar amount on the value of a boat slip.
Not today, and not in the Lake Norman market area, because there are fewer and fewer boat slips. There are not a ton of boat slip communities, and waterfront pricing has increased so drastically that there's many people who it's just flat out not attainable to get on the water anymore. So if you want lake access, your two options then are to buy in a community that has boat slip access, or to use like a public marina, but that's so much harder. You really will use the boat less like that.
Can you give an example? It's been a long time ago, so maybe you can use this as an example. Your customer that had a piece of land and they bought it and
Yes.
added.
They bought a piece of land. It did not have a boat slip. The community had some extra boat slips. So we went to the HOA and we requested to buy a boat slip from the HOA because they had several that were not assigned to anybody. They voted on it. The HOA could have really used the money. So my client, I think, bought it for $35,000 to have this boat slip in the community. And he sold his property in less than 6 months for $100,000 more because he had that boat slip.
Yeah. What sense does that make?
It was definitely a value add.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. All right. Next up, we have in the messy middle is title issues that kind of come up. I kind of tie like our title issues and our survey issues a little bit all together because those can get awful messy.
Yeah, a title issue can be something from the past where there's an issue where the property cannot be conveyed to another buyer because there was missing a signature way back when. But that's not typically the kind of thing that we run into. We run into things like there's an encroachment, there's a fence on your property, or a
driveway that's not in the right place. There's maybe a pool not in the right place.
Right.
There is, your house is into the setback. Your septic system is into the setback.
Right. Now that's a title issue. So that's something different in that if these things cannot be resolved, then that is a one time and only time that due diligence money can be refunded. So since that is the case, that's great.
Yes.
Right? Maybe.
Sorta.
Yes.
As with most things, it's a sorta. Well, sort of, maybe depends on the scenario, which is why it's so great that we've had all of these scenarios.
That's right.
It's a huge advantage to you.
That's right.
But let's just say that there is an issue like a fence that, this is a survey issue, which becomes like could become a title issue because it's an encroachment on either somebody else's on your property, you're on their property. It is an easy fix. And if the seller can remedy the issue, then it's a remedied issue and the buyer will still be responsible for moving forward with that. But you've had scenarios or seen scenarios where the buyer was trying to use those issues as a way out.
That's right. That's right. I had one recently where there was a shared driveway and there was a shared driveway agreement. And the listing agent put in the remarks, there is an agreement in place and it's recorded. So goes under contract, the buyer does a home inspection and it's bad. It was a bad one and they're like, we don't want to buy this house for structural damage and all this kind of stuff. They just want it out no matter what the seller did. So he tried to, so on the other part of the other
Flip side of that,
yeah, they found out that document was actually not recorded. It was written, but it was not recorded. So that
created a title issue.
That's right. So they said, hey, this isn't recorded. We want our due diligence money back because you have given us a title issue. So we took it to the attorney, and the attorney said, we can remedy this. All we have to do is record the document. Of course, the man that wrote the document, he had passed away, but it was still able to be remedied because the person when the adjoining driveway agreed to sign the document. It got recorded before closing, so they could not use that as an excuse to get their money back. And it was a huge amount of due diligence money, and they did end up going through with it. But what we were talking about, the mess on our side, we were trying to show that our customer was in compliance and was not entitled to give the money back. That other agent was in a mess too because their client wanted out because even though it was because of the inspection, so they were using the contract to try to use every available remedy to get their client out.
Yeah, so it's important to just know, like when you're going into this, like what things can be remedied, what things can't. And all of this just goes back to like your talks about the home inspection, your talks about due diligence. It really never goes away. It just all kind of keeps getting messier and messier along the way. And I think I want to say, in my cases, I'm going to say something like 75% of my sales are messy. And I think it has to do with our market right now because it's competitive that,
Well, I really think they're all messy. I think they may appear to the consumer, to our clients, that it's a little more of a breeze because they don't see
They didn't see the mess. They got lucky and they were
That's
not
right.
one of the mess parts.
We're in the background resolving the problem and say, no, look, we're clear. I spoke to the attorney. You don't have to do that. Go to your dinner party.
If you didn't see the mess, that means we just did an extra great
That
job,
is
because
true.
I promise you it was there.
That's true. And you and I both do this. We don't get our clients all excited, and we don't drag them down into this.
Yeah.
We
That's our job.
Yeah, we protect them. It's stressful anyway.
Yeah, I mean, buying a house or selling a house, it is not fun, even though it might look fun whenever you're showing the pretty houses and things like that. It's not fun. It's a hugely important investment on both sides, but I think it's important to protect the client so that they don't have to feel. They can feel as little of that stress as possible. Right. It's like, I don't want my financial planner telling me about his stress about where the market was going on a daily basis. God knows I'd never invest anything.
Right.
So I think it's just important that you have to just trust. You have to trust that the people that you've put in place to protect you know what they're doing. And that's sometimes what I say the difference is between a good and bad agent. Like a really, really good agent has had a lot of mess. And they've solved a lot of messes. They know how to get out of it because they've seen it all.
And they know how to protect their clients. Like I didn't know when I was new to not tell the client everything that's going on. I learned that made it worse.
Yes. It's kind of, that definitely makes it worse. Which brought us to one of our points was communication. Yes. That is a really good way to get things messy, especially the way that we communicate now, which is a lot via email and via text. And so there's not a lot of one-on-one phone call. It's easy to misconstrue what someone meant by something.
Right.
And then you've got everybody all flustered and fired up, and for no good reason.
Right. And we've learned that too, like what should not be in a text and what needs to be that phone conversation. Like I start to say something like, nah, they need to hear my voice on this because this might sound harsh.
Yeah. And sometimes I will call you and say, if I send this, how does this sound?
I say no. No. That needs to be a phone call.
Yeah, or sometimes I'll just text it out but not send it because sometimes I need to also just think about what I was going to text.
We need therapy too.
Yeah. And the thing is, we represent we're representatives on their behalf. Right. And so we really have to keep in mind about how we are representing them and negotiating for them and how they would want things to be done, even though they're not necessarily the ones doing it. They're doing it through us.
We are a reflection of our client. So if my client would not want me to be
combative,
then I will. Well, I'm not combative.
Anyway,
no, neither of us are, but
firm. We'll say
right,
like really
that's
super
right.
firm. Like, because I think I have a lot of clients that are really just very kind-hearted, and they would not want some of the firm tactics that I see sometimes.
I see it sometimes, and that works for some people. For my clients would not like that kind of agent.
I always like when I get an agent that's, I don't want to say ugly, but
aggressive and firm.
Aggressive and firm. But when they send it to me, and then I have to reflect it nicely to my client, because I know that if I were to share that information as it were given to me, and I do know my client, so if I were to share that information in that same way, that would not go well, and they would get all fired up, and then nobody would get what they want, whoever. So I have to tone it into the way that my clients need to hear it, right, to be able to meet everybody's goals so that we can have a successful outcome.
Right.
So basically we are like mind readers, therapists,
and fortune
tellers, negotiate. Like I'm trying to think, like I feel like it's sometimes another language we speak.
Yeah.
One
other thing we talked about this earlier is sometimes our clients say there's a home inspection, and our clients call us and say, "How is the home inspection?" It's like, I haven't heard a word. Will you find out? I'm like, no, I will not find out. Because what does that say to that agent if I keep calling and saying, hey, we want to know about the home inspection? That says, my client's waiting for a repair list. They're willing to do some repairs. I'm working for you. I'm not going to ask for that.
We protect you even when we protect you from you sometimes.
And you're probably, in reality, they're annoyed. I know that sometimes my clients get annoyed with me because they'll say, "Have you heard anything? Have you heard anything?"
And what that really means is, can you call and ask?
I'm not going to call and ask because that will not
be advantageous for you.
That's right.
It is for your best interest that we
If I
do
play,
the things we do.
we're playing poker all the time.
Yes.
We have to have the.
And so because there's a lot of emotions in all of these aspects, that is one of those messy things, because most buyers and sellers throughout this process at one point or another are on an emotional roller coaster. And it's easy for us to kind of look at it and say like, oh, they're just being crazy right now. But the truth is, we're not in the same type of roller coaster with them. We're in the mess, but we're not dealing with the stress or the scenarios or situations for why they're selling or buying a house.
Right. For them, sometimes I feel like it's crickets. They feel like, oh, I haven't heard anything. And that's stressful.
Yeah. But sometimes they're also just going through a stressful situation in the whole scenario. Maybe they're getting a divorce. Maybe a loved one has passed away. Maybe they're selling a loved one's house, and it's just messy because they are emotional about the whole situation. And so we have to keep that out of the mess.
Right. And even the good times, when people are getting married, that's stressful. Planning a wedding, and then they're buying a house with a future spouse or spouse. Like you said, divorces, estates. People have to sell the house that their parents owned for 55 years, and they're going into a retirement community or assisted living. That's tough stuff.
Yeah, you've done good at that. You've already done your down.
Yes, I did.
Your downsizing is a good thing.
How many plates do I have?
Like 2?
Yes.
I have to bring my own cup when I go to her house. Yes. Bring BYOC.
Yeah.
Yeah, bring your own cup.
I have 5 plates.
How many cups do you have?
2. One for me and one for Forster.
And I think I gave
how many
you
wine? Yeah, how many wine glasses? I have 1. Because Forster don't drink wine. But I had 3, to be fair. I did break a couple of them.
Yeah.
I just haven't replaced them. I'm waiting for you to make me some homemade wine glasses.
I do need to do that. I do have a whole bottle of glass needing to be cut.
Sorry, I'm getting distracted.
It's okay. It's okay. Wine glasses are important. So I think we have talked about like the main messy middle components. They are present in every single buy or sell in some way or another. So if you haven't had them, you've been lucky. Or you've had a great agent.
That's
so you
right.
just didn't
so you
know.
just don't know. You just don't know.
But they are present in almost every single cell. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you come across a real estate agent with a glass of wine at 6 o'clock or 2 o'clock, you should just give them a hug. Just know that they are superheroing their way through somebody's messy in the middle situation.
Yeah.
Should be like, hug your agent. I don't know. Hug your agent
we
day.
need to make some t-shirts.
Yeah, hug your agent. All right. Well, I thank you guys so much for tuning in for our messiness today. And I hope that you're enjoying the videos. I think we are on a new channel now. So if you are looking to see all of our videos, you can find them all in one place. We will make sure to post the channel for you, and have a look at some of those others, because they are super valuable information. And if there's some more value that you would like us to give your way, just let us know. We're both looking very smart today.
Yes.
So I think it's a good time to send us your request for.
And thank you for those that have made the request. This was a request to talk about the middle.
Yeah, we thank you so much. Have a very great day.